surprise, we're live right now, baby. So I was letting him
Love
know
it.
that. I also, what I loved about it is I asked him if it was if there was anything off limits, and what he said to me is like, I will kind of pause. I'll do that, and you'll know if I don't really want to answer it. So all the listeners out there, if you hear him pause, if you hear him not super confident in his answer, it just means he doesn't want to talk about it, and we'll move on from that subject. I've wanted to have this young man on for a long time because he has been an inspiration to me since I first came in contact with him. Not about what he does, but his heart and who he is, and the way that he pumps everyone else up, and the way that he serves people all around him. He's an author, a speaker, and an entrepreneur. This guy is an absolute genius, and you're all going to love him. So welcome Matt Fine to the show.
Hey, it's a pleasure to be on. No pressure, right? Genius. How in the world do you follow that up, brother?
Well, I love it, man. You're in Nashville right now. Am I correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so talk to me a little bit about this journey. Like, show the knuckles first of all, because when you have tattoos on your knuckles, you're in. What do they say?
Team Fine, man.
Team
So
Fine.
I believe Fine is my last name, and I believe that the power of team is everything, right? When we work together, it's good for everyone in the room. So I'm a huge fan of the concept of team, man. It's a big deal.
I tell you, Matt, most of the time when you meet someone and they have tattoos on their knuckles, you don't think servant leader right off the bat. Can you? And that's a stereotype. When people see my dreads, they always think it's a lifestyle as opposed to a hairstyle. But this is a huge thing for me because a lot of times, people look at a certain person and they assume something. And you get this because of the tattoos, because of those things. Where did this servant heart start?
Man, servant heart started as a child through the concept of faith, I would say, right? I mean, when your leader is to be a servant first, that's kind of how it generates, right? And I've seen it play out over and over and over in business and in my life that like when you're there to serve, it's you're helping others, but you almost get equally, if not more, back for the process of doing it, right? I'll never forget. I was in elementary school and there was a fifth grade team that we would get together. Every homeroom teacher was its own soccer team, right? And at lunchtime we would have these massive tournaments. We did all the year round. There was one team that was made up of the all-stars, and no one could beat them ever until one other class started playing like a team. And this other class had like B-level players, but once they figured out how to play together, they could never be beat. And so they always dominated the guys with the A-listers on that team. And they did it because they worked together. And I saw that. It was like one of my biggest ahas I'll remember the rest of my life in the fifth grade, being taught that this homeroom can beat this other homeroom when they work together. You know what I mean?
Talk to me too about your parents, because I think a lot of times, like for me, I give credit. Like the only reason why I get a chance to do what I do is because of my parents. Now that's not everybody's story, right? But they gave me a couple principles, and I tell people them all the time. Number one, they told me I was beautiful. Number one, they told me I was awesome. Never to connect myself with my accomplishments. Number two, they told me I was beautiful. That never compare myself to anybody. And also number three, which was to realize that I could do anything that I put my mind to, as long as I realized that just because I could do it didn't make it my purpose. So talk to us about those early times, in school and growing up and stuff like that. Like who were the examples for you to help you to become a servant leader?
Man, I would probably say it started with certainly my parents, but my grandfather, Papa, right? Papa was that superhero character that was in my life that always just seemed to know the right thing to say, had a gentle spirit about him, but he was a doer as well. And he would go get things done, and he would show up either by himself or show up to work as a group, and he would get people together to work on one focused, goal. Like they literally built a house with their bare hands. Like I watched them build a house, right? And you don't see that anymore. Now we hire crews to build houses, but it was like an old fashioned barn raising. Everyone's on board. We're all going to work together to make this happen. And I think it started from there, man. Just checking your ego at the door, being a team first individual, as John Robinson says, right? And knowing that the byproduct of doing things for each other is for our good in the long run. Is everybody
Help,
wins that way.
help me with this though, Matt, because as a kid, I'm talking 10 years old. I don't know if Matt is running around being like, yo, I need to serve every single person. Were you selfish at
No,
all, or were you just well, I mean, are you a superhero from the time that you were
no,
born?
dude, I would say what I was really good at in my youth was talking people into doing stuff that they probably would have said no to, right? So it's like you kind of gotta. We use disc test in our businesses, right? DISC, and I'm a high I, so I'm an influencer. And I was always like, man, I'll tell you what, like I'm gonna promote this concert, or I'm gonna like whatever it was that I was gonna do, and I could get like 20 of my friends to just come and help out, and I didn't have to pay them anything because they were cool with pizza, and we would light this thing on fire or whatever we were gonna do it, and so I think using my natural instinctive eye, influencer, being the guy to pump people up around me, like this is gonna be awesome, please join me in this fight, and I think yeah, I've leveraged that my entire life, man. And part of that is I'm a little guy in stature, right? And so little guys have to learn how to use leverage really, really quick. And so you start leveraging everything you can to make your dreams come true at that point in time.
So talk to me about the leverage part. I mean, did it ever go wrong? Did you, I mean, I would like to think that from the time that I met you, I see this, amazing guy. He's serving everybody, everything like that. And my brother told me the other day, he's like, more people will be inspired by you falling on your face and stepping in doo-doo than all of the successes that you ever have, right? So when I see a Matt, I know he's a human being, right? But was there any time where you used your influence to get people to do something that maybe wasn't the best thing in the world, Matt?
Sure, man. I mean, during COVID, we've had to lose a business, and that sucks. It hurts. And all these dreams and desires that you had to play out differently than what you expect, but you have to pivot and be honest and be vulnerable. I remember, so as a kid, man, I was probably 15 or 16 years old, and I was in a rock band, and we would promote shows, and I would literally I'd bring in these bands into town, and I could like pay off a car one night, or I could lose like three cars in another night, like if no one shows up, right? So I just remember there was one time, literally one weekend I paid off a car, and literally the next weekend I asked my mom for like 4 grand on a credit card, like really rough, right? And all these guys that were around me helping me knew that I got whacked, like I got nailed, and it didn't stop them to coming to my aid the next time I needed my help from my friends to pull off another concert, right? To pull off another show. And so I think they saw me win some, but then when the losses happen, it hurts. It hurts, bro. But the lessons learned from that is like, okay, well, how do we pick ourselves up? How do we kind of reestablish a game plan, and how do we pull it all back together to continue to work? Because every time we would do something, we would knock a show out, and tons of people would show up. It was all my friends' bands were opening for the show. So it was like beneficial for everyone. And through that process, I think we gained a respect of community, and understanding that when we work together properly, even when we don't win, like we can still pick up and move on and win later, because we've learned a lot from this situation. So
So,
that was, dude, I remember, man, I got waylaid, like seriously lost thousands of dollars one night. And it was the weekend after I paid my car off. Crazy.
how'd you lose the money though? That's the people out there right now. They're thinking like, okay, you lost the money, but tell us how you lost the money.
Dude, so there were other shows going on that night, right? And I was promoting probably 3 to 4 concerts a week, like really aggressively. And sometimes it would be like, 100 people at these like punk rock shows, and sometimes it would be a bigger situation that was, 600 or 700 people at a small venue in town. And there was one night that everyone said this is a knockout of the park. They're selling out these shows everywhere across the country. Let's bring this band in. Had a massive honorarium, and there was like 4 other concerts that night. So I didn't do my due diligence at that point in time, right? I should have passed. I should have researched what the market was doing. I should have known, based on how many people typically show up, that they're all going to be somewhere else. And I went ahead and said yes anyway. And you get into those situations once it's like, it would be like sports betting, right? You knock out a couple of bets in the park, now you're like, all right, I'll throw 100 on that one. It was the same vibe. It's like, man, I've knocked it out of the park all month, all year. Like, how can this lose, right? and you kind of step out in faith going for it, and then you get waylaid, and it's good for you, and it doesn't feel good at the time, but it's really good for you. And when you're surrounded by people that love you and will help you, everyone learns lessons through that process.
Who gave you permission to fail, man?
Oh man, probably my mom and dad. 'Cause there's no way I'm letting my daughter promote shows that are like $10,000 in honorariums. At this, like, dude, I was like 15 years old. I didn't have the money, you know. My parents always encouraged me to go after what I wanted to achieve. Um, and you know, looking back, I think that stuff is easy to take for granted, man. But when you have somebody in your corner going, "You got it, you can do it," and I probably a young Matt was unbridled to just go for it always, and I would go for it big. And if it didn't work out, bro, it was ugly. It was, but when it worked out, it was awesome. So I was just aggressive, and my parents gave me the bandwidth and space to do it and to say, "Hey, we got your back," you know.
So, but they didn't
Oh,
go. They didn't have your back, like right off. Like you were 14. They didn't have your back, and then at 15, then they were like, "Yo, Matt, swing for the fences. Go for this $10,000 honorarium." Let's talk about the stages early on. Maybe
love it.
4 or 5 year old Matt that your parents started to maybe give you a little bit more rope, because I ain't trying to give my son right now. He's 10. Maddox, if you're out there listening, I am not gonna trust you with $15,000 right now or $10,000 right now. You know what I mean?
No,
But and
totally, dude.
so talk to us about those stages.
Well, I think the stages are important to talk about because they're the most glossed over moments ever, right? No one wants to talk about promoting $100 show or giving a $10 haircut or whatever. It's not sexy. It just doesn't sell clicks, right? But but you have to go through that and skin your knees on the little things to know how to do the big things right. Um, I we were promoting like house shows for like 20 people and just trying to charge $5 at the door kind of thing, and that's how this thing got started. And then the last show was the biggest show I'd ever put on at a really big venue with 1,200 people showing up, and it was just it was these baby steps incrementally getting there, and you prove yourself in the little things, and then the bigger things come next. And I think right now, my hope for the next generation coming up is we've all been tired for the last 24 months, right? We're all exhausted. Everyone wants to knock one out of the park, bro. And sometimes you still have to walk through the little things and do the little things well. And I think you do that consistently, and you can knock the big ones out of the park, man. I remember, yeah, I just remember doing these tiny, horribly bad shows, horribly bad shows where I literally look at videos, old school videos, and it's like, why in the world was I doing that? And what I didn't recognize at the time was I was carving my niche in the market for me to continue to grow, right? And you don't see that in real time, but you have to walk through the process. And so being faithful with the little things, right? That's everything.
Well, I think it is everything, man. I mean, so talk to us too. You were the transition. Like, people are hearing you're promoting shows. You're also a
Yeah.
musician. You play the drums. Um, and I'm sure you play other instruments too. But then, you have a book called Be Here Now. You own salons. Now you're speaking. So you're an author, you're a speaker, you own salons, you're doing these things. What's the connection point between music
Mm.
and what you're doing now?
Man, I would say that I've always been a massive DIYer, right? I believe when you put skin in the game and get your heart and your hands involved in the dirt, that's where inspiration comes from for me. When I look at music, that was a former life, man. When I spent 8 years just touring and playing in bands and making records, and the best part about a team is that's how a band works. That's how a company works. That's how a family unit works. It all works like everyone brings something to the table, and then you evaluate what's there at the table and you get crafty. You know what I mean? You create and you process and you weed things out and you bring ideas that don't work and you keep the ones that do and you refine them. And it's this process. I mean, when you're a musician and you're making a record and you want to go tour it, you want that record and that collection of songs to be fantastic. And all four people that are in that band are bringing something to the table, and not all of it's good, man, right? And so you have to walk through this creative process that makes the end result better. And it's not always a fun process, but it is a very rich process. And I've found that DIY spirit, kind of that punk rock attitude of I'm going for this and I'm going to create something. I have no idea if it's going to be any good, but I have to create. Like that to me is what inspires me all day long. And so whether it's having a barber shop or a salon or my dad was a screen printer. We did DIY screen printing business for years. It was all about how can you use your best and create something special and unique that not anyone else is doing, because no one can do it like you. They can do it, right? But they're not going to do it from your voice and your perspective. And that's my goal with the book, man, is just like to tell my story and to encourage people out there. Like when you start that process of being an entrepreneur and starting a new business, like, man, it might go through a refinement process that needs to get better and better over time. And to really love that season, because it's a beautiful season, right? And that just jacks me up, man. I'm talking about this. I'm gonna go start like 5 more businesses tomorrow. Let's go.
Don't do it, man. Don't do it. I'm just kidding with you. I'm just joking with you, man. But talk to us too. I think a lot of times it's sexy, right? Like, oh, I want to be my own boss. I want to start my own business. And when I was saying don't do it, for some of you out there listening, not every single person should own their own business. And we know this part of it. Can you give us some construction to it or some foundational things that a person can do to be able to, before they start in? And what should they be looking for? Because before you start your own business, I don't care how qualified you are, you're going to get smacked upside the head with some stuff you didn't know about.
That's right.
Give us some of the punches that Matt took early on.
Yeah, man. So I spoke this morning at the Paul Mitchell School in Nashville. It's such an honor to be here. I went to this school, and so when I'm here, it's just like tons of memories brought back. And that these kids, these students, they call them future professionals in the Paul Mitchell world. They're here with purpose, right? They didn't start school to stay in school. They started school to finish school so that they can start their career. And inside them having a robust career and them enrolling in school is this vast gap, right? And so every day they're like, one of my first questions this morning, who wants to open up their own business? And like hands everywhere. And I'm like, ooh, okay. So listen, there's like 17 books you need to read, and you probably need to be in the industry for like 7 years first. But and we talked through that, right? You don't know what you don't know, and if you want to do something, you've got to learn about it. You've got to strive to get better at it. And the only thing that does that is filling your head with knowledge, surrounding yourself with good people, reading the right books, and walking through the process. Dude, there were haircuts that took me 6 years to like get. I remember standing there going, oh, this one haircut 6 years later, just now, like the light bulb just went off and I know how to do this right for the first time ever. And I had 6 years of guess I got like wonky haircuts because I didn't understand that shape fully, right? And I just remember the light bulb going off. And all that said, I just think you have to be diligent. You've got to turn over every rock. If you want to do a business, you probably need to be reading business books. You probably need to be listening to business podcasts. And you probably need to be surrounding yourself with somebody that can mentor you through that process. You shouldn't just start and figure it out as you go. That's a recipe for disaster, right?
So let's talk too, because I think that a lot of times entrepreneurs, and especially hyper-focused people like yourself, they have the tendency to hyper-focus in one area and then the others suffer, right? And which I don't think is a good or bad thing. It's just an observation, and I watch it happen. There's times where people are like, yo, I'm going to, crush my business. And when I crush it, then we get to this level, then I'm going to be able to spend time with my family. But the whole time that they're trying to crush this thing, their family is suffering. How is it that you have been able to master this art? And I know you're still working through it. You're a humble guy, so you're going to be like, no, I don't have it perfect. And I know no one's perfect. But you speak about your daughter. You speak about your wife. You love your family, but you're also hyper-focused on your business. How are you able to do it?
Yeah, good call. I think I let go of the concept of balance a long time ago. And I would argue in a philosophy standpoint that like the word balance is definitely more of a concept than it is an achievable situation, right? And what I mean by that is once you finally achieve what you think is balance, something else is out of whack. Remember that old school Tupperware that's been in the freaking washer too much, and you try to clamp three sides down, you go to the fourth one, and the other one goes boop, boop, and you can never get it shut because the thing has just seen too much life. I feel like that's balance sometimes when you're like, man, I got to make sure I have equal time for my family and for my business, for all these things. I heard a really fantastic analogy that rocked my face about 6 months ago. My daughter's playing basketball, and she's freaking awesome at it, and she is working her tail off, and which has been amazing to see her reps pay off. But she had a coach once that was like talking about balance. He said, I want you to stop thinking about balance as this achievable thing. I want you to think about pulse, the word pulse. So like when we are running, running a mile or whatever, and all of a sudden you got an uphill journey in this quarter-mile stretch, like your body has to pump more blood and pulse faster to get the oxygen there to get you where you need to go, right? And so the concept in that is like, man, your running heart rate and your resting heart rate are two different rates because your body is doing what it needs to in that moment to achieve the success that it needs to have, right? And just like the concept of balance, like, and there's times where you're not spending time with your family, and there's moments where you're not spending all the focused attention on your business, but it's a pulsing situation where right now I'm in a season where I know I have to put emphasis on this particular component of our business. And I know that I have the bandwidth with my family to do that. And I'll come back and go, you know what? The business is feeling good in this component. I need to go have a weekend with my daughter or whatever. Or I need to take the family out of town and just get away from all the things. And so it's this, instead of seeing things, I think the concept of balance is going to drive us nuts and we're never going to achieve it. We're going to feel like failures. Like, why not see it as what is needed in the moment? And I'll tell you, man, I'm asking that question even with my consultations and with every aspect of my life right now is what is the missing component? And how can I bring that missing component to the table? And if, in a haircut, if the haircut's too heavy, then I need to take weight out. In life, if I don't have enough time with my daughter, then I've got to find the time, right? And so you're saying, what is the missing component right now in my life that I can bring to the table and make sure that that feels like it has a better pulse?
How can somebody, how can they find the missing component? How do they, because, everybody says it. It just happened to me the other day. I had a friend, I called him and I said, how you doing? He said, I'm busy. And he was like, I'm really busy. And then he was like, I'm happy, but I'm busy. And I just love being busy. He said busy that many times. And then he asked me, he's like, you must be busy. And I was like, actually, no, I'm trying to not be busy all the time. Like that's where my focus is. How can somebody take the time back and slow down so they can see and become aware of the things that are happening? Because sometimes we get moving so fast. You got, any business nowadays, like you got the pressures of like, you got to do social media, you got to do media, you got to do PR, you got to do the business. Then you got to be the best at the business. You got to master that. You got to be there for your kid's soccer game, or else you should choose another job. You got to be here. You got to be there. How can a person, and I feel the calmness from you from when we got on the call today. How can someone slow down? What are some actionable items that they can slow their life down to be able to become aware?
Good question. I will say, I'll start with my own personal struggle in that, is that it does not come easy for me. Like calmness is not my default, brother. Like I'm wound up like a little hamster on a wheel, dude. I'm like ready to roll, like Scrappy Doo. So what I know is when I ask these questions of myself, and I think you have to start internally, is what is that missing component? Matt, you need rest, right? Because rest is the opposite of what you typically do, and that's what you need as a result. I think the hard part is most people don't know themselves well enough to answer that question. And that's a whole different avenue. But like at the end of the day, brother, I think you have to know yourself to give yourself, right? And if you are unaware that you create stress in a room, or you're unaware that your busyness makes you the worst you possible versus making you the best you possible. Like I feel like I kind of am my best when things are a little like crazy. Like I'm like, okay, let's do this. I'm firing on all cylinders, but it's exhausting. And so to think about pulse, I know I have to pull back on that pulse. And I've learned that over the course of years. I would say getting counseling let's start there, and to learn about who you are and to learn about where your strength is, and to know that the opposite side of that coin probably is where you need to put a little emphasis. We all talk about we need to work on our strength, right? But you can't ignore the weakness either. And you gotta, I think just walking through that process of knowing yourself is how you're able to be your best self and to give your best self through that. I would say the people that try to do too much during the day probably need to stop putting so many things on the list, right? And the people that don't make lists probably should start making some freaking lists, you know? And I think that's how it starts. Like, what is the missing component in your world? And if you don't know, I promise the people, the loved ones around you, they know. So ask some questions and be ready for some hard conversations.
So when you're a light, I mean, if you're watching right now, you can see Matt. If you're listening, you can hear it in his voice. A light like yourself, Matt, who gets to see the dark side of Matt?
Mm, that's a good question, Kelly. I know for a fact for me that I bring my best during the day, and I tend to bring the scraps at home. And that doesn't mean that my family doesn't have compassion and understanding and empathy for me. And it certainly doesn't mean that I'm a raging jerk at home. But man, the reality is my family sees the best and the worst of me. And my business partners, they tend to see the best of me, right? It's the people that are always around you. The people that are the closest to you are the ones that are going to see the real ugly you too. And that's where grace and love and empathy comes in, right? And then we get an opportunity to go, hey, you know what? Like, daughter number one, daughter number two, I missed the mark right there, right? Like, let's slow it down and let's have a conversation. I can be better than that. And I expect for you to call me out to be better. That's what accountability looks like. Right back to team, right? We're going to be a team. We're going to be in this for each other, with each other. And I need your help to be the best that I can be when I'm tired. Because you never default up, right? We never default to our best. We always default low. We go lowbrow, you know? And so I think the ones around us the most often are the ones that really get to see that the not beautiful, fun-loving Matt, right? And I'm grateful I got a team that cares for me despite, which is awesome.
So Matt, you know, I like to go into the family aspect of it, and you know, and obviously, like any entrepreneur that's successful, you have a spouse or you have a partner with you that is pumping you up and that believes in you a lot of times more than you do yourself. Talk to us a bit about your wife, and you know, what is some things that she doesn't hear enough?
Yeah, good. So, what I've learned through marriage, 17 years, bro, 17.
Congratulations,
Nice.
man.
Thanks.
How
Thank
old are you?
man.
How old are you?
I'm 42. I
You're
just
42.
turned 42 yesterday, man. My birthday was yesterday.
There we go. Happy birthday to you, man. Happy birthday.
Thanks.
Now all that is out of the way. Let's get back to the subject of your wife and how much you love your wife. So
Yeah,
she's
man.
going to hear this. I'll cut that out for you. I'll edit that out, and it won't be like, yo, it's my birthday when I just asked you a question about your wife, Matt. I'll edit that out and be like, yo, he just wanted to talk about you. He's
That's
so
it,
in love with you.
Yeah, he told me this was an important segment, you know. No, man, the best thing about my wife is loyalty, man. She is unwavering in loyalty. And
Matt, hold on for a second. I didn't ask you the best thing. I asked you what she doesn't hear enough from you. Don't try and get out of this, man. You already turned it into your birthday.
Right.
Man. What does she not hear from you enough? What do you think in your mind that sometimes you don't say to your wife, or sometimes that you don't show to her? What does she not hear enough?
Yeah, I should probably say thank you so much for being behind me with all these crazy ideas. Like, thank you so much for good or for bad or for rich or for poor that you are here with me. My wife,
Tell us some specifics, Matt.
yeah,
Like,
well,
let's air out your dirty laundry. You said
go.
that you would, but look into the screen, say her name, and tell her like the specific part of when she's rolling with you in the deep. Like, you know, with my wife, I remember there was a time when we got married and we looked at our bank accounts and every one of them was zeroed out. And as opposed to being like what she had the ability to do, be like, yo, Joker, where's our money? She just scratched me on my back and she said, baby, it'll be okay.
Go. That's right, dude. Man, so my wife's name is Lori. Lori is awesome. She's an introverted individual who so only the closest to us get to see her come out and do her thing. And dude, so 4 years ago, I went down. I had a back problem, and I've had 3 back surgeries since. Right, and you learn how much somebody loves you and how grateful you are for that love whenever someone has to pull up your pants for you and put on your socks for you and push you around in a wheelchair because you can't take steps in that given moment, right? She without a question stood up, had my back, and didn't complain when I was like, oh, this is gonna all the things. Oh man, this is a disaster. All the things, I can't walk. Oh, look, how are we gonna do it? And she'd confidently and quietly just go, you're gonna figure it out, and we're gonna do it together. And her having my back at all times through everything is the world to me. And I probably should tell her that more often, bro. Like, you having my back and loving me even when I can't walk is beautiful to me. And I thank you for your consistent love, grace, empathy, support, all the things, dude. I mean, we all know, as a business owner, the last 2 years was rough, bro. Rough, right?
What happened? What happened in the last 2 years, man? What are you talking about, man?
What do you? Yeah, not mine, playa.
No. I'm just saying, like, what? Like, I'm joking with you, man. Everything went away for me. Everything. So,
dude. So to go through a season like that where you're like, all right, we lost one business of 5. Do we need a merge? Are we going to be okay? The Great Resignation is real. People are changing. Like, literally the whole world is at the same time going, I'm not sure if I want to do this anymore. And you are the one, like, hoping that they just don't ask that question of themselves, or if they do, that they come to you and you can help coach them through what that looks like, right? Man, it's brought forth fear, uncertainty, all these questions, and at every given step, Lori's been like, bro, you're going to be good. God is good, and we are good, and we're going to walk through this together. And that's unreal, man. I'm not worthy of it, but somehow I get it, right? Love you, Lori.
Lori, you're awesome. I can't wait to meet you. I want to be in the inner circle because I would like to see Lori like wow out. Like, I don't want to see like the hello, I'm Mrs. Fine. I've been married for 17 years. I'm talking about, I want wow out Lori because I know she's probably up on the table getting after it. You know what I'm saying? But I want to see that part.
So here's what's going to happen, Kelly. The next time you're down for a Tennessee Titans game, we're going to go together, and then we're going to go camping. And then you're going to see the real deal Fine family get at it. You got to be our guest at a little river that we go to quite a bit, man.
I love that, man. So tell me, I think the greatest teachers in the world are the ones who we think we're supposed to teach, which is our kids. What have your daughters taught you in the last little bit? Let me give you an example, because I don't want this fluff. You haven't fluffed me, but you tried to glaze over some stuff earlier, so we're going deep. Last night, this whole podcast is about attitude, right? Attitude determines altitude. Yeah. Attitude is everything. This is what I'm saying. I got home last night after working quite a few hours. My son was like, and I told him, I said, his chest was hurting, so he stayed home from school. I don't think he was sick, but he's cute, so we let him stay home from school. And so he stays home from school. I walk in, and I was like, "How you doing?" He's like, he's 10. He's like, "Oh, Dad, like my chest is really hurting." I was like, "Well, you better get ready because I'm going to come up here and paddle your butt in 2K, NBA 2K." And he's like, "Oh, Dad," he jumps up and chest doesn't hurt anymore. He's like, "Dad, I got you. I'm going to get you," and all this stuff. Then we go to play. He plays with the Warriors. I play with the Memphis Grizzlies.
Yeah, you do.
I would like to think that it was the game's fault, but dude, I got drug. I was getting beat by 30 points, and every time he would score, he'd be like, "Klay Thompson, he's on fire. Steph Curry, check him out. Look at that D. This is the best. I can't believe, Dad, I'm whooping you." And he was back and forth, and then I lost it. And I was like, "Yeah, you're talking all that garbage now, but when I start beating you, you start crying." And he's 10. Yeah. And I lost it. And I was like, "Damn, I am a jerk." And he calmed down. And he was like, "Dad, you're doing good, man. Good defense." And I was like, "Man, I apologize. I'm a jerk." So I was a jerk to my son last night. I learned a lesson. What lessons have you learned from your daughter?
Dude, thanks for the vulnerability and the real story. That's Golly, and don't they happen like every day, bro? Like every day, it's one thing after another. Like plenty of life lessons in being a parent, man, no doubt about it. I think one of the first chapters of the book speaks to being present, and I remember the story where my youngest daughter at the time, she's probably 4 years old, and she was on a swing set at our little park in our neighborhood. And my oldest was 2 years older, so she could kick her feet and get some altitude and like have a great time. And I didn't have to like manage that, right? But my youngest didn't know how to kick her feet yet, and so I'm behind. She's like, "Dad, will you push me?" And I'm sitting on a park bench. I'm checking my Instagram or whatever, the whole like social media, downward spiral that you can get caught in for so long, so long. Um, so I was like, "Yeah, sure, I'll push you." So I get behind her and I'm like, "Dude, we're getting it, man, getting it." And she could tell like enthusiasm starts going down while dad's pushing, because at some level she's 5 feet in the air, and then she's three, and then she's like one, and finally she looks back and she's 4 years old. And this, I'll never forget her. She goes, "I'm back on my phone." Like she didn't know it, but like, well, she did know it. She just didn't know what I was doing because I was behind her. So I'm scrolling on my phone as if that's important. And she looks back at me and goes, "Dad, will you put your phone away and push me?" And I was like, "Oh my gosh." Like cut to the quick, like just knife in, not in the back, in the front of the chest. Like, oh man, that stings, right? And I did. I put it away, and I immediately felt like a total tool bag, and an absent father, and all these things go through my head. Like she's teaching me to be present, right? And that's the beautiful thing about kids. Like, dude, they can like literally they can just go outside with no toys and just have fun. And adults don't know how to do that. It's because we're too distracted and whatever, right? And so in that moment, she called me out as a 4 year old little girl to say, like, "Please be present with me, Father." Right? And that hurt, but it was beautiful. It's so beautiful. Um,
So, so
yeah.
Matt, talk to us too. When you talk about challenges being beautiful, right? But that's conditioning of the mind. It's
Right.
conditioning of your attitude and things like that. How are you able to look past what is actually happening at the particular moment, and you're looking
Mm.
long term with people? There was a story about, I believe it was a Chanel bag that you wrote about. Someone got color on it. You were a young business owner. Um, you know,
Mm.
if you want that full story, guys, you got to buy the book. But I want to get into the construction of this. Like, how were you able to look past the immediate gratification? Because most of the time, young business owners, young entrepreneurs are looking to, hey, like, come and visit my business. I need to do this. And you're looking long term. How are you able to do that?
Man, I do think you're right. It's the conditioning of the mind, and that's developed over time, right? But mindset is everything. And I think, I know not everyone that listens to your podcast is a hair guy or a salon guy, but there probably is a fair amount that listen to you for that purpose. That was where you carved your original teeth there. I For me, man, I see the industry right now, and this is not just hair related. I guess it's maybe generational with social media. Our mindset is so now and immediate, and there's not a lot of emphasis or people talking about vision, futures, long play. These words that I use all the time, because I know that you're not arriving tomorrow to your final destination of my business is now built because I got my certificate or whatever. You got to do the hard work. Um, I guess to answer your question, I think once you see that play out a few times, you trust the process a little bit more. I go back to my surgeries. Like for me to walk through a season of life where we were a single income family and I had no idea how things were going to happen, how we were going to make it through the month, because dude, I'm still going to cash flowing behind the chair stylist, right? I got to work to pay my mortgage, all that stuff, right? And then all of a sudden I'm out of work for 8 weeks because I can't move. And then, you know, you go to the mailbox and there's a check in there from one of your favorite clients that cut you a check for $1,000, or that, all these things just start coming together the way it was designed to blow me away. And I think that's God's providence and his grace showing us who he is and why we should trust the process. Um, to take it back at the very beginning of my schooling days, man, I got a brown brush stuck in this woman's hair, and I had to leave that brush in that person's head to go ask someone to help me get it out. 4 months later, I'm thinking to myself, man, I'm not learning anything right now. I'm not learning anything. And I look down and I'm working a round brush through this woman's hair and it's not getting stuck. That's growth, right? That is growth. And you don't see growth when you're growing. You see growth when you've grown and you look back retroactive and you say, man, the rearview mirror shows me I've covered some distance. And we're a different person than I am right now than I was when I started this process. And I think time teaches us. The funny thing about it is it starts when we're really young and we don't see it until we're older. You know what I mean? And so for all you young bucks, just be patient, bro. Just simmer down, go through the steps. Be patient. It's coming. She's coming.
How can you like when I say that, like how can you say that when we're in a environment and we're in a culture that is like, you need to get yours now. You need to, you know what? I got 7 figures. I got 6 figures. I'm going to take you there in 7 steps. Here we go. How does a person calm their mind? You talked about mindset and you said it's developed over years. How is it developed? Like, what are some of the things that a person can do that will help them to be able to get into this Jedi master kind of thought process that you have? You know what I'm saying? Because a lot of us just get mad. Like we get mad at I got mad at my son. He's 10. I tried to punk my son last night at 10 years old. You know what I'm saying? Like you just, and I was an idiot. Like, how can a person put a North Star in place so they can always come back to that? You know what I'm saying, Matt?
Yeah, that's good, man. I think you got to find a mentor, bro. You got to find somebody local, close that you trust and and that costs you time, right? Anger. What happens after anger, right? What happens when we get mad that we're not where we want to be? You either get to work or you get out. That's generally what happens, right? Or you just get everyone else gets out because they don't want to be around some angry dude, right? Um, when when I think about people trying to grow their business in anything, whether it's a salon or a freaking whatever, a real estate business, whatever it is, you have to, if you are angry, you're going to produce a byproduct that is angry, right? It's not, this is a common sense approach to anything. It's what you focus on is what the output will be, right? Um, I know for a fact that it takes X amount of time to develop a business. I know that it takes most businesses 18 to 24 months to become profitable, and it doesn't matter what business that is. So what I got to do is walk through the 18 to 24 months with someone that's done it, right? To me, it starts with mentorship, and it's a component that very few people ask for, but if they ask for it, they'd find it all over the place. Dude, I would love, like, if somebody came up to me and would you please, could you like have a weekly conversation with me? All in, let's go, right? If you really want it and I can give it to you, I'm giving it to you. It starts with mentorship, and you got to have mentors around you that love and care for you, and that will show you when you're growing and tell you when you need to get back in line a little bit. Um, I think you can only achieve that information if you work hard to know yourself, and you are intellectually wise enough to handle some hits because it's going to hurt sometimes. And then it's about mindset and seeing the best. Um, I had a mentor once say, and this sucked, dude. I kind of overstepped my bounds, and he kind of threw down on me a little bit. He goes, and I knew, I was like, oh man, I kind of overstepped. I knew it. And so he calls me and he's like, listen, like I'm going to give it to you right now. What I'm going to do though is I'm going to break up the ground, and you can't grow. You can't grow in a field that hasn't been plowed. We're about to plow it, right? I'm going to tell you what you did. I'm going to tell you why you shouldn't have, and we're not going to have this issue anymore, right? But the reason why is because we're trying to make the ground fertile, right? And dude, I my first instinct was to get a little pissed, to be honest. Like I was a little bit like, bro, like you weren't moving fast enough, because that was the real, like, we almost lost the deal because he had some other things going on. But I was wrong. I was out of line for my relationship with my mentor, and he called me on it. And as challenging as that was, it was beautiful. So you have to see life is not going to hand you all the things you want all the time, especially when you want it, because that's just not how it works. You have to see the journey as being the beautiful part of it.
So Matt, how can a person, you alluded to it, you talked about it a little bit. You said the word and you kind of moved on because it's a part of you, and I know this part, and you spoke about faith. Like, how can you, in today's society that everyone has to have, like, you have to have this tangible thing, how are you going to tell me that to achieve my dreams or achieve whatever, that I need to believe in something I can't see? Like, and that I'm going to have this faith that this thing is going to work out. How do you explain this? Like, how do you explain that to, how do you explain it to your kids?
That's a great question, Kelly. I think part of the thing for me is defining what workout looks like, right? Like, because when it doesn't work out the way I want it to work out, that's a different story. I'm okay with it working out not like how I envisioned it now, and I wasn't for a very, very long time. Man, I call it God. You want to call it the universe, whatever. Like, he's coming for you. Just give it a minute. But whatever you call it, he uses life to teach us, man. Time is one of the greatest teachers possible. And when we're open to seeing how time is used to get our attention, to captivate us, to do all the things that have to, all the challenges that have to be there to produce through the soil growth, right? It's part of the process. Embrace that and stop running away from it. Stop running away from it. When I think about my daughter, like, basketball reps, dude. Basketball reps. She is tiny, man. She's like 24 inches shorter than everyone, man. And what she did was she goes out and she gets reps and works and works and works. So she's prepared and ready for the moment. And I feel like we just have to be prepared for the moment and know how to trust the process. I don't feel like I'm answering your question directly, bro, but man, I think God has a way. Again, you want to call it the universe, you want to call it whatever you want to call it. I believe that it's all for our good, man. All the things are all for our good, brother.
You answered it, man. I want to go back.
Dude.
I want to rewind a little bit because you talked about something. You didn't actually use the word, but I remember when I read this book. It's called "How the Mighty Fall" by Jim Collins. And if you haven't read it out there, you need to read it. It's absolutely phenomenal. One of those things that is incredible. And one of the components of how the mighty falls, because he studied all the companies in Good to Great, and when he studied them after, and he did Good to Great, and everyone's like, yay! But there's this little black book called How the Mighty Fall, which he took those companies that were the great ones, Good to Great, and then he showed how they fell. And they all had the same components, one of which was called hubris. And when I read it, I was like, I don't know what hubris is. And then I called my brother and I was like, should I be saying it hubris? I didn't know, right? So I said it, and my brother was like, yeah, hubris. It's assuming that you'll succeed because you've succeeded before. And so it basically boiled down to the ego of saying, like, yo, I did this, and therefore I'm going to go do it again. You hit on this a little bit. Can you take us into this and how hubris can get you in trouble?
Dude, absolutely. You're gonna lose. You pay off a car and you're gonna lose a car. Right back to the promoting shows. Dude, you don't get married to get divorced, right? You don't start school to stay in school. You don't start a business to close it. But sometimes those things happen. And what I've started doing now, once you have a loss, like losing a business, I've started saying maybe it was successful. Why do I have to put it in a loss column? And I'm not talking about denial. That's a different situation, right? Like, because denial is real too. Like, you might be really lying to yourself about some things. But
how do we know? How do we know the difference, though, Matt? How do we know the difference between being positive Matt, having the rose-colored glasses, being the positive guy, and then being like the emperor with no clothes on?
Yeah. You don't want to do that either. Again, you got to surround yourself with people that will tell you, and you have to I'm all about killing toxic ego. So ego is good, right? Like ego is what drives us in the morning to get up and actually brush our teeth. Ego is what like produces good things. So ego is not the problem. It's toxic, selfish ego that is the problem. When you feel untouchable, you're going for it. You're going for it. You're going for it. With no checks and balances and no guidance and no counsel. I mean, there's a reason why in Proverbs it talks about having wise counsel around you all the time, right? You and when you've had enough wins that you think you can just go out and get another, and that's when you get beat, right? And that doesn't have to be bad. Like maybe the beating was the blessing, and now you learn some stuff from it that you're going to implement on your next win or your next attempt, whether it's a win or loss. I've stopped looking at wins and losses like I used to, man, because the reality is this season has produced some losses, and right, I mean that's just life. We've all walked through some seasons that were really tough and it was really challenging, and that ain't changing. So where's the growth from it? And it doesn't have to be financial growth. For our case, meant we had 5 locations down to 4, right? That didn't feel like growth, bro, at all. But when now I look back at it, I go, man, that was actually as challenging as that was. I see it as a stress benefit now, right? Like my stress levels lower as a result of having one less location. Whoa, taking the blinders off. Maybe that was a win that felt like a really heavy loss for a long time, right? And that's not denial. That is not like shape shifting, making something what it's not. Like that's mindset and seeing it as being a positive benefit to a blessed life, right?
So Matt, again, like every person out there listening knows why I wanted Matt on the podcast. You're hearing him, you're seeing him. Give us some things that maybe, I mean, I'm not a super ritual guy, right? So I get into stuff and then I get out of stuff and whatever it is. Is there things that you do to be able to get you back to center? Is there things that you do on a day-to-day basis? I mean, there's extremes, right? I heard a person tell me the other day, they were like, yo, my mentor has the next 30 days scheduled out to up to 45 seconds. And I was like, your mentor's life sucks, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because they live in the life. They're locked into all the stuff. But
yeah.
talk to us about some of the things that maybe you do to be able to get back to center. And I'll give you an example. Like, for me, this morning I was on the beach and I do a little thing called 45 seconds of wisdom. And if you're on my Instagram, well, those of you out there, thank you, because I tell my wife I'm cool because you're following me. But if you check my Instagram, it's 45 seconds of wisdom. And it's basically, I just get a chance. I read Proverbs and I just get to sit at the beach and watch the stuff roll in. There's no words. There's no anything. It's just that. It's just the sound of the ocean. So I get a chance I read the corresponding proverb, corresponding day. And then I write 3 pages, and then I'll write a letter to my daughter and to my wife, on that day. And some days, sometimes weeks go by and I don't miss a day. Sometimes I miss some days. But what are some of the things that Matt does? Because we all want the Matt juice. Like we're listening to Matt and we're like, dude, this juice is good, right? So we need to can this, man. Like, let me invest in this Matt juice. So what is it? What makes up the Matt juice?
Well, before I answer it, I'll tell you, thank you for being an inspiration with your 45 seconds. And one thing I know about you, brother, is you're consistent. You're consistent. Now, you might think that's a joke, and you're like, dude, I didn't do it 4 days in a row, whatever. But you you do what's your something Mondays? What is it?
Mind frame Mondays.
Mindset,
I just do Tuesday because there's no other word that I could think of Tuesday. I do wisdom Wednesday, thought process Thursday, fun Friday, silly Saturday, and sunny Sunday.
I mean, come on, dude. Like that's awesome. So you're an inspiration to us, and we thank you for that. For me, man, I'm an audible learner. I love listening to. I don't love reading, man. I'm dyslexic, and it's a struggle. My wife is like reads like a freaking crazy woman. Like she reads all the time, and I'm like, she's always like, "Do you want to read with me?" And I'm like, "That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. No, I would never want to read with you ever." But I will listen to something while she reads, right? And so audible learning to me is something that's really important. For me, though, the best thing that I can do is to get out in some space and be quiet. Well, almost like you at the beach. Like to me, taking a walk or going, like for us, we've 11 seasons straight camping as a family. And when I camp, I feel at peace. I feel quiet and I feel refreshed. And just changing my environment, that's a big one for me, right? The grind is so consistent of what I do in the course of the day. The concept of scheduling every 45 seconds or 30 days sounds atrocious. Like I need some space. I need some space. And then outside of just like having some quiet space to walk around and see something different than my normal, I would say, man, I go back to music, and it's not listening to music, but making it. And so the cool thing about being in Music City is there's enough old dogs like me that can, we dabble on the occasion, send tracks back and forth. And when I get an opportunity to play on a record or a demo session or something, it's like, it really lights me up, man. That's a creative process that I've always enjoyed and loved. And so looking for those opportunities to get behind a drum set and play a little bit, maybe record a little bit is just invigorating to my soul. And at the end of the day, I think it comes down to creativity. Like to me, um, you know, again, bringing up faith a little bit, but like if you believe that this is a designed world, it's a pretty beautiful design, right? It's gorgeous out there. That beach view that you always post, that's a really pretty view, right? And so to create beautiful things, I believe is in the construct of our DNA, and we are to create beautiful things. And whether that's a haircut or a business or a song or what, or make some, it's Valentine's Day is like next weekend, make your girls some Valentines, like make your people get creative, get crafty. There's something about the creative process that to me speaks into our hearts and our minds in a way that's dramatically deeper than just making a craft. Does that make sense? The
Absolutely.
process of being creative is the beautiful thing. And I think we are designed to do it.
I was just reading a book last night. It's it's called Crazy Faith. I can't remember the author. He's a pastor, but
Is
you
that
need to check it
Chin?
out. What's that?
Is that Chin? Or Phil? I know that one. Anyway, go ahead.
So
Sorry.
Crazy Faith, and the thing that stuck out to me, which most of you guys are going to know the author. If you don't know the author, Matt will figure it out and tell us here. He'll Google it here in a second. But he was talking about having that you don't need 100% faith, that you just need 51%. And I
A
thought this was
majority rule, huh?
right. So it was just this concept where I think a lot of us are waiting for this, like, oh, I got to be 100% in. And he was like, nah, just be 51. Like, just all you need is that slight tipping point, and then God will fill in the rest. God will be the 49, right? So he'll step in and be able to do that. Talk to us a little bit about when, because everyone, I would love to think that, you know, Matt, I believe you're a superhero. We all need Matt juice. But there's times where you step off into stuff and you actually don't believe it. You're not all the way in. And people, like, I love it because when people are, especially speakers, they'll be like, yo, I'm 100% in everything. You got to be 150 every time. And I'm like, sometimes I'm like 49 and I need a little push. You know what I mean? And then I try it and it works out. Talk to us about when you went into something you didn't know if it was going to work. And, you know, maybe it did or maybe it didn't.
Yeah. Author is Michael Todd, it looks like online.
Yes, Michael Todd. I love you, Michael Todd. I want you on the podcast. So do that. And then before you say this too, I want to tell you, Matt, it's great because you were saying that you listen to books, but you don't, you're not doing it, or you're not reading them. But I did want to tell you that this is a thing that I'm speaking into existence. I've never spoke about this on the podcast, is that I'm actually starting a series of audio books, but they're going to be very consumable, where you can listen to them on your ride into work or your ride home. And so we're gonna start in on that. So be looking out for it on the website. But keep going.
I love it. I love it, man. Oh, geez. And
so 51%, like 51%, like talk to us about when you went into some, because again, when people are like, yo, I started this business and I knew in my core. And I'm like, I didn't. You know what I mean? My wife asked me when I was opening my first business, she's like, what if it doesn't succeed? I was like, I'll work harder. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you just try it out. And if it works, then great. And if not, shit, like maybe you weren't supposed to do it.
dude, I'll tell you, my process of starting is pretty, I would say, ugly and reckless. If I'm going to be honest with you, I just go. Like, I'm the guy that like jumps off the cliff before checking, like, is there a rock underneath the water? Like, I kind of just roll. And I've done that with everything. Like, moving to Nashville from Oklahoma, getting married, having kids, starting businesses. Like it's been like, hey, I think I'm going to do this. Go, like that's it. And then I figure it out as I go. What I've actually found, I told somebody I started this book and was almost done before I was even close to being done. And I wasn't trying to lie. What I was trying to do was motivate myself to have my actions meet my words, right? So I literally, I told somebody, I told Win, I was like, dude, I need you to write this board. I'm almost done. And I was almost done with the concept, but I had no idea. I've never worked on a book. I've never done this. I had no idea how long it would take me to finish a book. Right. So like, I just said, no, I'm almost done. And it was me being naive. I thought I was almost done. I really did. I wasn't lying, but I was like, oh, I come to find out I wasn't even close to being done. And I'm knocking at his door like, bro, can you write something for me? That'd be awesome. And he did it, which is awesome. But it took me another year to finish this thing. And this is a great example of a guy who doesn't like to write or read, writing something and doing something, stepping into something that I had no idea how I was going to finish it. So for this purpose, dude, I talked to texted that thing. I would literally, so check this out. See this guy, see my finger, this guy. I can make this one straight. I can't make this one straight. I cut my hand incredibly bad. I cut like.
I lost a little bit of your audio. I lost your audio now. That's all right. See, this is what happens in life. And we've lost Matt's audio, but that's okay because we absolutely love him. He's going to work on that. You know what? You can even drop out of the call and then come back to it. It's completely fine. But this is the cool thing with Matt. And as we're talking is a thing that I want you to realize. And this is the reason why I go live is because there are things that happen in life that aren't going to go your way. And it's not about what happens. It's going to be about how you react to it. And if you could stay calm, if you've built your mindset and you've prepared, see, war is won in peacetime preparation. And so if we can prepare in the peacetime for the challenges that come, then you're not rattled. Right now, I'm not rattled. This is great. I get a chance to be able to spend some time with you guys, and we get to see Matt. Now, I tell you, when he comes back on and he shows you that that book, what I want you to realize is that that book is such a phenomenal example of that 51%, of faith, just stepping off and going at it and not having to be sure of it. And I can tell you this personal testimony for you. I read the book and I told Matt, I read the book in probably 2 hours because I couldn't put it down. And it doesn't matter if you're a hairdresser. It doesn't matter what business you're in. This book is the construction of a true servant leader, but it's not someone telling you what to do. It's a person talking about what they're actually doing. And I think that's, my hat's off to you with the book. And what I was saying while you were gone, Matt, is, we were talking so much garbage on you. We were saying, totally. Man, we can't believe that he just lost his audio. No, what I was saying is that war is won in peacetime preparation, right? And, most of the time people wait until they're in a fight to learn how to fight. But if you get your butt in the gym, by the time the thing happens, you have no challenge at all. And, being able to stay calm in those times. So I think that, it's such a testament, your book is such a testament to who you are. And that's the part that I love about it, man, and being able to be around you. The other thing is I like that you're a Titans fan. The fact that you're a Titans fan, there's no greater thing than being a Titans fan.
No, agreed.
Okay.
In fact, that should be our next podcast we do together. Titans all the way, right?
It's just all Titans, man. So now, a lot of people were going after our boy. A lot of people were going after our quarterback after the loss. When you have something like that, those of you who watched the playoffs, you saw it. How do you then put your knuckles up and say team when you saw, a lot of people could say, no, that wasn't a team. That was a one situation. As a leader, something like that happens. How does Matt address the team to bring them together?
Yeah, man, that's tough. In fact, I went to a basketball game the following Friday night for our local high school here, and Todd Downing was there. He sat in front of me, and I was thinking like, bro, you should not be out yet. Like people, like Sports Talk Radio Local was like frustrated with a lot of things. But here's the deal, man. I think for as a Titans fan, I love the organization. I love the team, dude. The team first individual. Those three words sets a tone and a culture that, I mean, John Robinson recreated that culture with those three words all day, right? We're looking for team first individuals. Team first individuals. That's good. Um, they, it's 11 men on the field, and there's a bunch of coaching. And as an outsider who just sees the finished product, we don't know what was happening. We don't know the full story, man. We don't know the play call. We don't know the route that was supposed to be run. There's a lot of things on the inside that we just are not privy to. And again, you go right back to trust, bro, right? You got to trust the process that J-Rob, Vrabel, and Tannehill, all the receivers, that they're going right back to work to get it done. If you look at the history of Tannehill, he was like, well, dude, he's one of the best like quarterbacks we've ever had in franchise history, right? I mean, his stats are there. It sometimes it didn't go our way, that one. Dang it, it should have, but it didn't. It didn't, and that's okay. But dude, you got to stand by your man. I'm not a fair weather fan. When we're 2-14, I'm still bleeding baby blue,
Yes,
right? Like you
yes.
got to stand by your man. And so we're gonna win it next year. No worries.
I believe it, man. My son is a Titans fan now. I've been, for all those of you out there listening, I'm an Oilers fan. I've been an Oilers fan since I was 6. Now I'm a Titans fan. I believe I'm the only one left. I've never even talked to a person in Houston that rode with the Oilers over to Tennessee. And I have some Tennessee people, which I love you, and you guys are real, and you're OG, but you ain't OG like Houston and getting
And Warren
beat up.
Moon.
Oh, I'm talking Ken
on.
Stabler. I'm talking Earl Campbell. You know what I'm
I
saying?
know.
So I just but I bleed it too, man. My son, he was so down he's 10 years old. He didn't talk for 3 hours.
Yeah.
He did not talk for 3 hours.
It was a bummer, man, for sure. I had some money on that game too, not gonna lie. Man, shoot. It's all good. It's all
Big ups to J-Rob. Big ups to J-Rob and Jamie Robinson too. She's got a podcast called Out of Bounds, and you need to check that one out too. But phenomenal family, and again, like being able to change the culture, I think is a huge thing. I think this world, honestly, Matt, needs more of you, man. I mean, as many. If you're listening out there, you got a company and you need someone to come in and speak and be real, you need this guy. If you have an organization, whether it be through virtual or it be in person, you need to have Matt. The reason why I say that is because he brings real experience, and he's not trying to fluff you. He's not trying to give you these things that he read about. He's just talking about the things that he does. And, as far as an icon for me, that's what an icon is. It's a person who chooses, future glory as opposed to immediate gratification. It's a person who looks past the day and invests in people and invests in relationships over time. And that's what I've seen that you've done over the years. I've known you over 20 years, man. Mm-hmm. Over 20 years. And I've seen a growth, but I've seen the same consistent guy throughout and the same character. And that's the whole reason why I started the podcast, man, is because I wanted to take iconic people like yourself. I wanted to show that I wanted to take you, and I wanted to show my 2 kids, Maddox and McKenna. Maddox is 10. We've talked about him. I punked him last night in NBA 2K. And my daughter, 13 years old, I told her I was proud of her this morning, and she looked at me and she's like, why? And I said, because she wanted me to be specific.
Yeah.
Right? She wanted me to be specific or it didn't count. And so be specific. Be specific with the people that you love and the people around you.
She needed you to be specific. Not only just wanted, she needs it. Right? That's deeper. That's bigger. Whew.
Yeah. So that's the reason why I started, is because of those 2 individuals, Maddox and McKenna. And I wanted to take iconic people like yourself, Matt, and I wanted to show them that Matt is not a superhero. He's just a guy with a great attitude and phenomenal work ethic. So what advice, Matt, would you give to Maddox and McKenna? If you could use both their names, it would be awesome.
Yeah. Well, it's been an honor to be on with you. First off, thank you for that. Maddox, McKenna, first off, I'd say your dad's a stud. And I know he doesn't want me to say that, but he's a stud. But you also need to, curb his enthusiasm sometimes by calling him out and beating on him in 2K. I know for a fact that Kelly is a passionate human being, and he is passionate about, if he's going to be passionate about anything, he's going to be passionate about his children, and he's going to want to see them grow up to be better than him. And that's big shoes to fill, but you can totally do that because you're being mentored, whether you like it or not, by a stud. So listen to him. He's got a lot of wisdom. Sounds like you got Pops over there. That's a grandpa situation. That guy's. If Kelly is produced by Pops, then you guys are in a good lineage. So just listen and be wise. And also clean your room, Maddox. Clean your room.
I love it, man.
Man, advice past that, man, I would say, and not just to your kids, but any kids, anyone that's starting something, man, I don't be afraid to fail. Don't see failure as failure, and do the work. It takes doing the work, man. You can't have like all that your parents and grandparents created with their entire work life. You don't start there. You start at the bottom and you work your way up, and you do it with wisdom, and you can do it even stronger, right? So do the work. Don't be afraid of the work. Don't be afraid of the journey, because that's the beautiful part.
Matt, you have been incredible, man. I want to have you on again. I'd love to have you on the podcast again. I just think that it's incredible. The more and more, Matt, I think that people get, the better off they're going to be. You know, the schools that get you, but I want I want the organizations out there. I want the organizations out there, the companies out there, the people that, that you bring together a conference. You need to have Matt. You need to feel him. I spoke something into existence as far as audiobooks. They're coming, kellycardenas.com. You need to check that out. Matt, what do you want to speak into existence right now?
Well, I'm working on another book. I'm going to work on a book about, I'm not going to tell you what it's about, but it's a broader book about small business and team specific, really about culture and culture setting, but it's around a character that we all know and love. So that's going to be a fun one. Man, I want to speak into existence an awesome 2022 for me and for everyone involved with me or around me, or for yourself, wherever you are. I'm also not starting 2022 until March 1. You can join me in that if you want, because I feel like January, February has essentially been an extension of, but spring is going to bring renewal. It really is. I know it's silly, and it is silly, but spring is going to bring renewal for us as a people and us as a world, and I would get ready for it.
My friend Kevin, he lives across the street from me, and Kevin in 2020 in like May, I was sitting with him and he said, "Man, you need to get ready for spring 2022." And I said, "What?" I said, "Well, you just skipped over a year." And he's like, "Because 2021 is already done." So what I would invite every one of you to do right now is get prepared for spring 2024. And if you start doing the work right now for the result that you want in 2024 spring, exponential gain is coming your way. And Matt, I want to speak into existence you, man. I mean, number one, you're a phenomenal speaker. You're an incredible author. You're very relatable. You're an incredible entrepreneur. And you're what this world needs as far as a leader. And I want to speak life into that, because I just think that the more and more that you understand and know that, and I think you already understand this, that your accomplishments, man, like the things that you accomplish or the things that you do, the tasks that you do, have really nothing to do like with who you are. And that you just, like my pops would always say to me, he would say this, he would say, "You're the greatest." And then after my mom passed away, he said, "You're the greatest." And then he said, "So act accordingly." And so, Matt, what I invite you to do is act according to your greatness from this point forward, and everything will fall in line, man.
I appreciate that, buddy.
I love you, man. I love you a ton, man. Now's the time where if you're listening to the podcast, check the links, do all the things. You know what you need to do. Check out the sponsors, do all the things. But I just want to thank every one of you for listening, for riding with us. And as we grow, I want to thank Matt for being on the podcast, man. You are absolutely phenomenal. And, I just really, really appreciate you. And, man, you're officially off the hot seat.
Woo! Thanks, Kelly.